Good morning, everyone. It is now 9 o'clock, and we will call the meeting to order of the Escambia Children's Trust for October 14th. Would ask that everyone in the audience please silence your cell phones, or in the words of Mr. Ken Ford at IHMC, set them to stun or whatever is necessary to quiet them during the meeting, if you would, please. Other thing to point out, if there are any members of the audience who would like to make public comments during that time of the meeting, the forms are over here by the hand sanitizer on the table in the front. Would please request that you pick up one of those forms, fill it out, pretty self-explanatory, and then present them to Alma over here at the staff table, and we will call on you. The time of that speaking, again, is limited to 3 minutes in order to try to keep the meeting on track and in respect of everyone's time. The next item of business will be the roll call. Please, Ms. Ellis.
Good morning. Ms. Kane? Present. Mr. Leonard? Here. Commissioner May? Dr. Northup?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
I have Judge Williams as excused and Ms. Woods. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Williams, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Join me in the pledge. I pledge
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now I will need a motion and a second, please, to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. And then the next is an acceptance of the minutes of the September 10th board meeting, which were attached to our packet. And any corrections, changes, additions, deletions, or anything noted on the minutes? And hearing none, the minutes will then stand as submitted. And the next item then is a presentation from Ms. Cannon.
I want to ask Meredith Bush to please come up here. We didn't get our opportunity to say goodbye in the right way, so I asked Meredith to please come and be with us today. I want to just say I had a few things and I had to write them down, so I didn't get emotional or anything. But I want to first of all thank you for being a leader in this mission. I know it's not been easy, but you've been here since the beginning. And really set this group and the group that's come behind them in a right way. Hold on, I don't want to mess this up. You've also been a voice of reason for us. You've been a friend in hard times, and you've been an advocate for children in our community, which is the most important thing. And we want to thank you for your service to the trust and present you with, I know this is not the best parting gift, Meredith, but we hope that you will display it in your new office and your new life that you're accomplishing, and we are excited to see all that you will do. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I won't take any time, but it was an absolute pleasure and honor, a privilege to serve with you. You are doing great work for the community, for the children, and you know, it's always an honor to be able to stand beside good people doing good things. So I appreciate the opportunities you gave me. If you ever need a city, county, local government lawyer, a land use attorney, or just a friend, I'm right down the street. So thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Meredith, thank you for both me individually and from members of the board. And we certainly wish you all the success in your current endeavors, and really do thank you for being with us as the board, even from the beginning and prior to the beginning even, and counseling us, advising us as we were stumbling along and putting together policies and procedures and feeling our way in the dark, so to speak, and we thank you for that tremendously. Okay, next item is Ms. Abrams and the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you. If you look at your financial packets, these are through August 2025. The first page, we see that our balance sheet, we have a total liabilities of $439,891, and that is mostly for accounts payable. The City of Pensacola's CRA request will be recorded as a liability as part of our closing entries for the end of our fiscal year. Looking down, you'll see our budget, that we are budgeted for 5.94% of our expenses to be administrative. Currently, we're running at 7.37% administrative, with 2.63% tax collector and 90% on program. We collected 101% of the revenue that we actually budgeted for. We ended up budgeting for 96% of tax revenue collection. We got 96.6. And we had the payment back from Pensacola Little Theater that was not budgeted for. We are at 92% of our fiscal year done. We have expended 86% of our administrative budget and 73% of our program budget. And I wanted to let you know that in July, we reached a new milestone and paid out over $1 million in reimbursements to community providers for the first time. So that was really good to see. We have $19,232,000 left remaining in funding requested by our current providers. That will, out of that, $16 million will be paid out of current cash on hand, and the other $2.7 million will come out of future funding. When I sit down, we adjust this every month when people close out their grants, and if they have not spent it all, it gets put back into that budget. So we have our obligated cash. We have $23 million in the bank, and $4 million of that is not obligated currently. So we have 83% of our cash in the bank is obligated, and 17% of it is available for unanticipated needs. So if you look at our balance sheet, you'll see that we have $25 million in the bank. 2.39 of that is in the reserve account. That is 5% set aside out of all tax revenue for unexpected emergencies or downturns in the economy. Next thing you'll see is our statement of revenue expenses. And there's two copies here. One is a regular statement of revenue expenses, which combines all of our operating expenses together. And then the next one is statement of revenue expenses by function. The by function divides out admin and program expenses. So on the first one, the statement of revenue and expenses, you will see that we've got about $4 million profit in the bank right now that we have not spent of revenue taken in. We have collected all of our tax revenue, and we'll have one more month of expenses that get recorded, so that amount will go down for the year. So we have collected all the revenue we expect except for interest. So that $4 million left over for this year will drop as we finish recording August and September expenses. If you look at this page here on the statement of revenue expenses, you see our total operating expenses and our grants and aids expense. Out of the 8.967 total expenses we had, 1.234 was for running the agency, operating expenses totally. That includes admin, program, personnel, everything. If I take that amount and divide it by that, that shows we have a 14% operating total for the agency. On the next page, I break that down into both the admin and program expenses. So we have administrative expenses, which are me, I'm an admin expense. I don't work with the programs. But then we have expenses that even though in our page before, it might look like they are an administrative expense, they are used for running the agency for the programs. We pay software that they operate off of, that type of stuff. So if you look, we have admin of 897,000, and then program operating comes out to 8.07. That includes the money we've paid to the grants of 7.7 million. Those are the numbers that I use for calculating our administrative expenses, and that's where we get for the 5.7%, or 7.7%, I'm sorry. The other numbers, if I calculate it without that breakdown, includes the program expenses of operating that are used for the programs we fund. Now, if you look at our expanded general ledger, that shows all the financial transactions that happened during the month. And if you have any questions on any of those, I'd be happy to answer those. The next thing in your packet is our administrative versus program expenses by month. So it shows our administrative is a total of 10% and program is 90%. And then I break down administrative into the tax collector fees versus our actual administrative operating. So next at the end is your contract schedule. And that shows all the contracts we have issued, how much money they have been rewarded, what they've requested and drawn down, surrendered, and what they have balance left. So as of the end of July, because they had not drawn down for August yet, we had 5.369 million surrendered in funding that had been awarded. That funding has been reallocated. We put it back into the CARES grants and for other funding. And then on the last page is your obligated cash schedule. That shows where that 23 million we have in the bank is obligated to, and the 4 million that we have currently available. So each of those contracts that we have available, the current contracts under matching grants, like it shows through 9/30/26, that shows through the time period that I have put that money aside to cover for. So do you guys have any questions? Okay, thank you. Seeing no questions, I recommend that you guys approve this to be filed for audit.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments? And if not, then move that we will file that report and accept the recommendation from the Finance and Operations Committee to file this for our yearly audit. Reminding everyone that our fiscal year runs from October 1 through September 30th. So the numbers that she was referring to as far as the percentage of our year that we are through and the remaining portion and the expenditure funds and all is related to a fiscal year of October 1 through September 30th. And so we are now completing or have completed by calendar the last fiscal year and are now going to be beginning the 25-26 fiscal year. So, okay. So that will be filed for audit purposes. And our next item on the agenda is public comments. Oh, there. Okay. All right, and the request that I have here is from Mr. Waldo, who came before us at the last meeting, I believe it was. And,
Yep.
Will be, and also has spent some time with the staff, as I understand it. And hopefully that was beneficial to you.
Spent a
and
fair
to
amount
the
of time with staff and a lot more on my own, digging into the places they pointed me to.
Okay,
So I was here in September, and I chided the board for gross mismanagement. My comments were based on the WEAR report stating either 88 or 58% of the funding go into salaries and benefits and admin. Now, before September, I had no idea what Children's Trust was, so I Googled it, and everything I found was negative. And I believe that you all are probably concerned as to the overall public image. So at that September staff meeting, your staff said that the WEAR report was false, and they invited me to show me their budget stats. I met with them twice and did a lot more reviewing where they pointed. My goal was to find out actual budgeting numbers. So if you really want a public view, perception, this is what I, as a member of the public, just digging and spending a lot of time, I'm going to give you my review from a public perspective. Oh, by the way, those charts, you don't need to read them. I'll explain what that is in a moment, and it's more for you to refer back to later. So unfortunately, most of the review I'm about to give you will seem pretty bad. You can take it as someone telling you, you've done a bad job. And no one likes being told that. So you can resent my comments and ignore them. Or you can take the things I point out and go look them up for yourselves, verify what I've done, do your own research, and determine what things maybe you need to change. My first good news is to compliment the forthrightness, willingness of the entire staff to help an outsider from the public. They really went to a lot of effort trying to point and focus me, on looking when I'm trying to find out budgeting info. I really appreciate their time and effort. What I will now offer is what I found. Mostly info about the 2024, which is in columns 2 through 5 of that chart. It came from your own website. And a little bit more was provided by Tammy Abrams. If I'm going to consider, I'm public, I'm going to consider the budget for 2026. I'm taking my mindset back to August. There are 5 areas of info I need. I need the planned or budgeted overall for 2024 and the actual for 2024, the last completed year. I need the planned and the actual with year to date. And I'm sorry, in August, why isn't there a through July 30th year to date? I found none. And then I need the planned or budgeted for the next year. If I'm a member of the public, those are the things I'm going to go look for on your website. Well, I found the 2024, and that first handout you've got, the first page, is basically those same 5 areas that I just pointed out. I'm not going to go over the details of it, but this is what I found on your website, okay? But believe me, it was not easy finding things. And by the way, the orange empty blocks for 2024 could not be completed even after meeting with your staff. So my challenge to you is that each of you should take the time to find the budgeting info on your own website. Go try it yourselves. See what the public sees. Next, in order to properly determine salary and benefits and admin expenses, you need that of your own organization and also an overview of that information for each of the grant groups. By the way, that second page is just a sample showing, hey, here's an overview from as if you were going to do the same thing for those grant groups. The idea is you actually have to take their admin, add it to your admin, take that as a percentage. So guess what? The actual, I'm skipping ahead, but the second good news that I came in reviewing is that the determination that it is approximately 25% of the monies is actually for salaries, benefit, and admin expenses, 25% of the actual money you expend. Whether it's the 25% and there's a blah, 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 we'll skip the details how, I went over it with Tammy. And therefore, the 58 and 88% was grossly wrong, and I apologize for saying that you all were grossly mismanaging. However, 25% is still barely a reasonable percentage. So to repeat my earlier challenge, I double dog dare you to take the summary spreadsheet I give you and you go try and find it yourself on your own website. It is not easy. So that will give you one of the reasons for a poor public image. If I could create such a summary sheet, I understand.
Please wrap up. We're to
With
3
the time
minutes.
spent, I recommend to you let me finish. I'm past halfway.
Well, you need to be further than that, please, sir. Come to the summation.
Okay, I'll skip a little part. There are 2 major bad things I found. For year ending 2024, your own website info showed that you took in $13 million taxpayer money and expended $8.5 million. That left about $4.5 million that you simply put in the bank and never used. And with no year-to-date info for 2025, I can only infer the same. Imagine the public's perception of you setting taxes and collecting an extra $4.5 million per year for 2 or 3 or however many years. That's not going to be a good public perception if that's what I got out of your own website. At one point, I have heard it expressed that, oh, gee, this is for future expenses, but basically the future obligated expenses are going to be paid out of the future taxes. So that idea smelt like smoke to me. And then the second important thing is, in the first meeting with the staff, I asked about finding budgeting info. They pointed me to a couple of things. I found 5 pages on your overall annual report, 5 pages, and hundreds of pages of extensive demographic charts and graphs, enough that they'll choke looking at it. And I found 0 budgeting information about the grants. So now, my bottom line conclusion is that your website appears to the public to be mostly self-aggrandizing and self-congratulating, with more demographic reports than anyone will ever bother to wade through, and little or no cost information. By the way, the demographic reports are important, but the volume and the way and the structure and the lack of budgeting, that gives a negative view. Oh, by the way, all of my speaking notes, I'm going to give her copies to give you. That will give you something to refer back to. And thank you for allowing me a little extra time. Hopefully, I gave you something useful.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us to the next item, special presentation, the General Chappie James Flight Academy.
May I speak?
Yes, please.
I appreciate you, sir, for taking the time out to, sir? I would say I appreciate you. I know you came last month and again this month. I appreciate you taking the time to research that. A lot of people come before us and make comments and they don't have the information. When you were informed that the information was not correct, you did come in and try to learn about that. So I really do appreciate that. I hope you consider whenever we have our next grant application applying to be a grant, read over the grants with us so you can see in depth how that works. So a lot of people apply and they don't do the research, and the time that you took, I think, is very important to understand what we do. And as a board, we don't always agree on everything that we do. Our common goal is to help children, and that's why we all come from different backgrounds. And so I enjoy listening to what you said and you doing the research. And so please consider applying when we have that grant application open.
I thank you very much, and like I said, your staff, they've been about, can you come to this? I'm sorry, I'm starting to have some shallow breathing problems right now. My own medical blah, 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 blah. I'm done with my Don Quixote, but thank you for allowing the extra time so that hopefully, and that's why I gave you copies of my actual notes so you can refer back. Hopefully you can go use it to find things. In fact, in working with your own group, I pointed out things about their structure and how it was put together. They went, oh yeah, we can redo the, what you do in the future is up to you.
And that's information we need to know. Like, you know, if you are a community person and you can't find stuff, that feedback is the information. And a lot of times people complain, but they don't give us that feedback. So giving that feedback is important. So thank you again.
Like I said, good luck. Sorry. You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
Good morning and greetings from the leaders of the Chappie James Flight Academy. I'm here to present a great program that we've been doing for a number of years, and through the graciousness and through the Escambia Children's Trust, we're able to do a lot more for the children. So hopefully I'll give you a chance to smile this morning, and I have some photos to share with you this morning, because I believe a picture's worth 1,000 words. First of all, the General Daniel Chappie James Flight Academy continues to inspire and educate
We've only got his
youth.
presentation on the one board over here. It's not on, wait, it was, my apologies. We were not able to see your slides, so.
Yeah, I'll get to those in a second here. We continue our mission to inspire and educate the youth through aviation. This year, we've engaged students across multiple age groups through hands-on learning, field trips, and real aviation experiences. Our goal is to develop curiosity, discipline, leadership, and the same values that are exemplified by General Chappie James. Our three main programs that we have through your program are our weekend classes, our ground school, and our summer camp. And just to highlight that before I go through the slides, the General Daniel Chappie James Flight Academy, through our glider program we started in May, June, and July, we had 10 students that participated in that program. For the 3 sessions, the students used rulers and precise measurements and to build balsa wood gliders. This included pre and post tests, and the students, after the 3rd session, exemplified great learning curve from that process. They also were able to use 3D printers to see how the gliders were designed, and that was a very good plus and exciting for the kids as well. They also participated in flight tests.
They do weekends, or do they do in the week? Is it just a weekend program, or do they come to the week as well?
No, this is just a weekend program.
Okay.
So the way it's broken up into, we do a session in May, a session in June, and then July. That's part of our weekend program. So the program ended in July with flight tests and glider competitions out in our courtyard, which was very fun and exciting for the kids. So we try to integrate not only the academic part of what they're learning, but also make it fun and exciting for them through the activities that we provide. Our summer camp this year hosted 26 boys and girls, and that was our week-long summer program. We gave the kids a pre-test, so we had 5 areas that we focused in on. And they had no idea, or probably no experience, or maybe some of them had some experience in some of the lessons they were going to learn during that week. So we just wanted to have an idea of what they knew. And that test provided about 62% for the students that did the pre-test. So that was the highest that they got. Now, here's the good news. At the end of the week, that went up to 85%. And 5 of the students completed their testing with 100% on their post-test. So that was very, very exciting for us. And that just told us how engaged the kids were all week in learning and participating in the activities. And that was over 70% of the students that scored very, very high on that. Now, the subjects that were covered, what were they? General Daniel Chappie James, his life, aerodynamics, aviation weather, the parts of the airplane, and aircraft instruments. Now, all this was done in 1 week, and we had the kids every day from 8 to 4, so it was a very intensive and immersive summer program that we were able to put on. So the week concluded with the students actually graduating and going on actual flights through the graciousness of the EAA Young Eagles program, their 485 program out there at Roscoe Field. At our graduation, for the first time, we had over 100 guests and parents attend the graduation at the Dixon School of Arts and Science for our summer program kids. And we were very, very excited to have that. FAA Ground School. We have 4 students going through a certified Federal Aviation Ground School. This is to prepare them for their private pilot's license. And they're doing very, very well right now. We've got 2 certified flight instructors who are providing that weekend kind of hands-on and in-person learning for them. So they're going through an online class, which they're doing, and then they get the in-person training on Saturdays. Since the school started, kind of moving into once a month. They were doing it every week during the summer because they're available, but now that school started, we kind of wanted to make sure that the focus was on school, and then we provide that once a month. And we thought we were going to have these kids test out before the summer is over, but we quickly learned that it's so important for them to finish this program and to score well on it, because if they decide to continue on with flying as a career, as many of us have done, this follows you like your school records. So we're giving them every opportunity to be successful in this FAA ground school, and they should complete that testing in March. That's what we're anticipating. Community engagement and student opportunities, that's a big part of what we do. We had a lot of our students participate with us in our Blue Wahoo fundraiser coming out. We try to encourage them to give back, not only just to take advantage of programs and money, but to actually do something that's going to help another organization or themselves. So that was funny. That was fun to have. 2 programs we have coming up that they're going to be participating with us are Girls in Aviation at NAS Pensacola and the Blue Angel Air Show. So we're going to have some kids from our summer program, our weekend classes, out there with us at our booth with their shirts on and inspiring the next generation of kids who may come through our program, where they can hear directly from the kids who have already gone through that. 2 quick things. Student achievements. This year we had, for the first time, one of our students participate in a internship, paid internship at Pensacola International Airport in their flight operations, courtesy of Matt Coughlin, and that was fantastic. And Brenda Wakile did a fantastic job, showed up, did her thing, and because I was like, you got to represent us well. This is not a fail thing, this is a success thing. But she did a fantastic job, and she did that. I think another gentleman from Auburn University Aviation Department was down through that internship program. So I'm saying all this because we're just more than just provide a class here and experience there. We're trying to grow leaders and give these kids opportunity on a big macro picture of what they can achieve. And to be able to have things like this happen, like an internship, is fantastic. Last thing, and I know my time is running out, the last thing is we had one of our students participate. She got an Air Force scholarship, aviation scholarship this year, and she attended a 3-week course out at California Aeronautical University. And what happened there is she went through an intensive ground school. This was a very competitive program that she was awarded. Kids across the entire country compete for this, and not everybody gets selected. But Mackenzie Peterson from our program got selected. She went out there for 3 weeks, and she was able to solo an airplane in less than 3 weeks. And better news, she has just been accepted to Southern Illinois University, where she will graduate from high school this May and attend that university, and she's going to go on and continue on in aviation and pursue flying. So we're very proud of that. Some slides real quick. Click, is the right click? This thing? Arrow. That's just some of our, a couple of our kids at the Blue Wahoo Stadium helping out with us during our parking lot fundraiser. We were able to raise over $4,000 for the Chappie James Flight Academy. So we just not only want money from Escambia Children's Trust, we try to generate our own money as well. So we can, I think that's part of what you want us to do, is to be able to have a self-sustaining program. So we're continuing to work on that. If you guys don't recognize the gentleman in the middle there, his name is Victor Glover. He's a friend of the Flight Academy and a very good personal friend of mine. And he visited the Flight Academy, spoke to a couple of kids. He is the commander for the upcoming mission to the moon on the Artemis mission. And he's part of our Black Naval Aviators reunion. We're getting ready to have that in November. I just texted Victor. He's very, very busy, and he's hoping to come down for our reunion. And I'm going to get all of my students and the kids from the Chappie James Flight Academy and their parents in a big forum at the Flight Academy so he can talk to them about staying in school, discipline, hard work, and any aviation questions that they may have. So we're happy to go through our new facilities. As you can see, that's one of the hands-on learning things that the kids were building in our Flight Academy. All the smiles in the faces, that's one, our ground school instructor there. There are 3 other students there. Mr. Carlos Burton teaching the kids. Very good friend of mine who I went through flight school with, his son came and spoke to the kids about the Naval Academy. And this young lady was in our program years ago. She is now an aviation mechanic over in Mobile. And I hadn't seen her in years. She's pregnant and getting ready to have her first child. That's kind of exciting. Her name is Catalina Rios. She was in our program as a 13-year-old back in the day. Visiting a aviation training center in Mobile and FlightWorks, Alabama. These are the kids getting ready to go on their flight, actually going flying. There's Zaylon there. great kid. Some of our instructors, by the way, we're all volunteer staff. We don't get paid for this at all. It's just a love of what we do and provide for the young people. And these, you see all the smiling faces there, the kids after their program during graduation time there. Build, design a glider class there out of the balsa wood I mentioned earlier. We had two of our students do a WSRE program with us. That was exciting. Our 3D printer. I can go on and on. This is us at the Chappie James Day at the Blue Wahoo Stadium with the bobblehead there, and Avery, who was one of our students in the glider class, holding a bobblehead there. So these students stay really engaged with us. Kai, he is doing an interview, getting ready. Florida Power and Light has a commercial that they're shooting, so they wanted to highlight the Flight Academy. Again, that's Victor Glover gave us a nice little photo of him for the Flight Academy. My last remarks are, while this program and metrics and data are important, we realize that we track them closely. Don't get me wrong. But the real measurement is the impact. How our students grow, gain confidence, and discover new opportunities. That's what we're all about. The Escambia Children's Trust has been a critical partner in making all of this possible. Their support allows local providers like ourselves to deliver meaningful, high-quality programs to the youth. It's a great return on investment for the taxpayer, whose dollars are helping build the next generation of leaders. So I would invite anyone in the community, come out and see us. It's one thing that I can sit up here and talk about what's happening, and I know that some of the leaders at ECT have actually come out to see us in action. I implore you, come out and see these kids in action. You will be totally impressed with how your dollars are being spent. And lastly, I'm a big tennis player. I know I said lastly before. But I'm a big admirer of the great tennis player Arthur Ashe. And one thing that resonates with me is what we get, we make a living. What we give makes a life. Thank you.
Can I ask a question real quick? Thank you so much. Yes, I have a quick question. Thank you so much for coming. This is exactly why the trust is here, is to do this and to hear these stories. I would love to meet the kiddos that go through your program. What are the ages of the kiddos that get to go through your program, and what schools do they mostly go to?
There's a myriad of schools. I got homeschoolers, and I got a whole array of schools that they come from in Escambia County. The summer program is limited to 13 to 17 years old because of the flying. But now our weekend programs and other programs we have, we try to bring in kids from 4th grade all the way up through 12th grade. So we're reaching down and trying to, one of the things of being in aviation for so long and a pilot is I didn't have this when I was growing up at all. So you can't catch the kids when they're in high school because they kind of are deciding what they want to do then. So we're trying to catch the kids early because there's a whole big industry out there in aviation. So if we can catch them in 4th grade and just kind of, coddle them along and show them some things that they've never seen before, that might just spark them to do something later in the industry. And that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much. I'm so thankful for you coming today and talking to us. So.
Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah.
I have
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and
Yes.
Looking forward to next month to the Black Aviators coming to town. It's always an exciting time, and I do appreciate you talking to Lieutenant Jessup the other day, and you bringing Victor down in our neck of the woods. I think that was a great thing for kids from the inner city to see, the first African American go to the moon, and Victor was just so personable. So I appreciate it. Which leads me to my question. What zip codes and what neighborhoods are the children coming from that participate? And I guess it's two parts. Where are they coming from now? And then what are our outreach, our recruiting that we're doing to bring kids, particularly from disadvantaged and pockets of poverty neighborhoods?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't have the zip code statistics on hand right now, but what I can tell you is that one of the reasons why we're partnering with the Dixon School of Arts and Science is because we know that those children mostly come from the zip codes that are mostly in need. So, and we specifically focus in on those kids and then on those grade levels for that.
So what's the criteria for participating? So, I mean, it's not based on income, it's not, I mean, what's the criteria for, all children are just eligible?
We've always been, from the 30 years of our existence, we've always been kind of first come, first serve. And we don't have any criteria. But what we do try to do is we try to reach into the local community centers like your Cobb centers and Fricker centers. We've done that in the past because we want to make sure that we provide a targeted audience for those kids in those neighborhoods and in those local communities where our actual flight academy exists.
So, I guess, so is there any transportation provided at all?
That's been the biggest challenge for us over the years is the transportation. In the past, we've used church vans, Enterprise.
Well, just ask for a van. Everybody else and their mama asked for one from the Children's Trust. You should ask for one. I mean, yeah, you could get a van. You could get a van. I mean,
Oh, yeah, we realize that. This is our first time actually requesting some funding from the Children's Trust through the CARES grant. But we've had church vans, we've had Enterprise rental car donate vans to us for transporting our kids. And a lot of the parents, like we just had a group of kids go out to NAS Whiting Field and do a field trip out there. And the parents actually took them out there to that experience themselves.
And I think, you know, aviation is one of those fields that children from low-income areas have been excluded from. So I appreciate everything that you're doing and just figuring out more ways in which we can help to get more kids. And that's why I'm very interested in knowing where they're coming from, you know, because most kids who come from Addis Court, Morris Court, Oakwood Terrace have never been on a plane. I mean, candidly, I wasn't on a plane until I was almost an adult. So most of these kids never get that opportunity. So to get them involved in aviation at a young age, it's critical. And so, Lindsay, I don't know. Have we done it when we look back at the data and the submittals? Do we know where these kids are coming from that are participating in this aviation field? Do
Yes,
we know
we
the
could
zip
pull
code?
that from SAMUS at any
Yeah.
time. They input all of that in there. It's just, Rick would just need to extract it, so we can get that to you.
I'd love to get that information as soon as possible.
That's not a problem.
Because I think that even with our collaborative partner, no one is doing the services that you're doing. So whether Cobb Center's doing the after-school program or Brownsville or any of these other groups that we're funding, they're not doing aviation, you know, in the STEM. So I think we should have our kids involved in your program. And so just as you meet with staff, let us know how we can help, because those kids, if they're playing basketball or they're being tutored, if they can get exposed to aviation, I mean, it's life-changing, generational life-changing. So if we can help you with recruitment, let us know.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great. Thanks for those questions. And anything else? Yes, sir.
And it's funny that you're here.
I'm going
Beckham went to the moon.
back things.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. And so,
I need to get a picture of that and
yeah,
send it to him.
He presented this
I'll
to the
text
kids.
it to him. Yeah.
A lot of kids from Addis Court and Morris Court, he presented this, to all the pictures from going to the moon. So that was great. Thank you for facilitating that.
No problem.
I'm going to back up a second. My apologies for this. I did not catch your name, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cliff Curtis. Cliff Curtis.
Cliff Curtis.
Yeah, the president of the Chappie James Flight Academy.
Well, Mr. Curtis, I wanted to just make a comment that probably got to reflect on my age here now. It has probably been 50-something years ago. I attended the old original Booker T. Washington High School and was in classes with General James' son. I'll use his nickname, Spud James.
Yeah.
And through his affiliation with our classes and things, I had the opportunity to see General James visited on 3 occasions during our time there at school. And to this day, 50 years later, the impact of his visit, his comments, his presentations still resonate with me.
Right.
So the fact of your connections with Commander Glover and others that you have put up here as mentors and role models and things is just exemplary. And the lives that you will be touching and things with that, as well as General James's ongoing legacy, I just that is just exceptional, and appreciate you and your other comrades working on perpetuating that and keeping that going. So thank you.
Well, the James family, on behalf of the James family, they're very, very involved in seeing this legacy continue, and so am I, being a native of Pensacola. I never got the chance to meet General James himself, but I was very good friends with his son, Danny James III, who was actually a 3-star general and the commander of the Texas Air National Guard. And him and I were just the best of friends. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2017. But I can specifically remember in those church vans going to some of these events like Mobile. He was so engaged that he would call my cell phone and have me put him on speaker so he can talk to the kids. So the family of Chappie James are heavily involved in ensuring that these kids in Pensacola get the best out of their lives.
Hey, Mr. Chairman? And Cliff, just a little plug, and even if you ask for more, I'd be very supportive. I think, oftentimes when we think of the Flight Academy, we think of aviation, we probably think of the kids who are at the highest intellectual level of academics. But when we talk about our economic development here in our county, ST Aerospace, Airbus is coming to Pensacola, aviation maintenance, hangars, those type of things are the real jobs that are going to attract the masses. And so although we know that, we focus on aviation, we certainly should be focusing on those ancillary jobs and that are available to people that surround aviation. And so I see my superintendent and my school board member, but that would be critical for programs because every child is not intended to go and get aviation or a master's degree. Many of those kids can do those jobs that we are, investing lots of money to make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year jobs.
Right.
So those kids in the urban core inner city who may not be the academic excellence that you have to be to do aviation, there is a career path of success for them to be positive adults. I mean, we have a young man here that went through the Chappie James that works in our IT program right now, and I think he still volunteers at your Flight Academy. So I mean, I think that there's an opportunity to not just get those 26 kids, but to expand it and do partnerships with like ST and Airbus, where we can bring those kids in, and we could be supportive of that.
Already done, Commissioner. I just don't have enough time.
But you're ahead of me, Cliff. You're always ahead of me.
I don't have enough time to go through everything, but I just recently, he came over to the Flight Academy and spoke with the gentleman over at Pensacola State College, and they just stood up a new aviation maintenance program. So we're partnering with them as we speak to provide these opportunities to the kids. I had a young man go through George Stone aviation maintenance program. He just graduated. Now I'm trying to help him get a job. So in the industry. So those things.
ST is hiring, so we can make that happen. So,
those things are happening. I'm just hoping to get more volunteers and connect with more people so we can make sure that we connect the dots and these kids get them. Now, I say last thing again. Anyway, to the kids that might have some academic challenging, I can tell you, that's why I want you to come out and visit us. And I'll speak to Zaylon. That was a gentleman you saw on the airplane. Very challenging. He has a foster parent. Doesn't comes from meager means, and his parent was kind of telling us about the challenges that he had. But to our surprise, just kind of hanging out and going through our program, he ended up being one of the smartest kids at the Flight Academy. And it just takes that little bit of some spark sometimes for kids who you don't think might have the aptitude. You'd be surprised. And we learn that every day. And we try to nurture that as well. So we don't just get the high achievers. We try to get everybody. Everybody's welcome. Oh, my kid's got behavior problems. We're military guys. Just bring them on and let them kind of see what's going on here. And we'll do our best to take care of them safely. And then we'll see what happens.
Well, listen, the mechanic is probably smarter than the pilot, because if the mechanic doesn't get it right, nobody lands. And so mechanics are very,
Now,
very,
I don't know about that one, Commissioner.
I don't know. I mean, no
you
matter
may
how
be right.
no matter how high you fly, if the landing gear don't work, it's a bad flight.
That's true.
And so, yeah, mechanics are very good people. But I will give you a compliment. It bothers me that you've done this for years and years, and then you get funding. So many organizations have done it for years out of the goodness of their heart. But as soon as they get Children's Trust funding, salaries get increased and everybody gets paid. You guys have remained loyal to doing it without getting paid. That speaks volume to what you're doing versus many of the other organizations that we're funding that once did it because they love children and they still love children. But there's a lot of compensation and you guys get none. So thank you for your volunteerism.
Yeah, I just go back to Arthur Ashe. What we get, we can make a living, but what we give makes a life.
Y'all do.
That's how we do it.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you very much. An impressive presentation and an impressive program. We thank you for that, Mr. Curtis. Now to business operations. Lindsay, I think they have two job descriptions to advise the board on.
Yes, so we have met as a personnel committee to discuss two positions. First is our communications manager, which we all know as Michael. When Michael was hired, the original job description had him doing outreach and then also really looking at being the lead for, it's the grade level reading campaign. However, that is assigned to ELC from a statewide perspective. That's not our program. So I don't know if there were discussions about that being something with the trust. I know there's other trusts that are the ones that head that up. But locally, it was Achieve Escambia, which is now under United Way, and ELC partnering on that. So I've been working with Michael over the last year to try to, well, he's very talented, first and foremost, but I've been asking him to do a lot of things that were outside of that and were necessary, and he actually has the talent for. So not just for Michael, but for this position in general and what we need for the trust, we have updated the job description to be actually what this position is doing and is responsible for and is being evaluated on annually from a performance perspective. So if you look at the communications manager position, these are all the things, Tammy, Michael, and I all worked on this together to make sure that we included everything that was actually happening within his position. And so we would like to, and as a recommendation from the personnel committee, update this job description and pay scale related to that particular position. We also have an example here of some of the things that Michael's been working on related to media and marketing, which is also part of the website design, all of those kind of things that he has been responsible for, but we're not currently being captured, and quite frankly, we need to be able to measure him against his job description for performance.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the updated job description with the idea of it being seconded, and then we can open discussion. So is there a motion to approve the updated job description?
I so move that.
Second.
It's been moved and approved, so now, any discussion, questions? I see Commissioner has your mic, oops. Okay, well, it has been motioned and seconded, and no further discussion. Thank you for the complete packet and the information, including the examples of the work Michael has been doing already. All in favor of updating that job description? Vote by signaling aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And congratulations, Michael, and thank you for the work that you have been doing and continue to do. Next is the job description regarding the contract finance analyst, and that also is contained in the back portion of our packet.
Yes. So as we've been talking about how we support our nonprofits, specifically some of our smaller grassroots ones, we are doing our own gap analysis on what we're able to do locally as staff for them and what their true needs are. And so some of the things that we had put aside in the original budget was around $100,000 to do some nonprofit training, similar to what PSC is offering from their nonprofit series, and other opportunities. However, what I will say is that I don't believe that that is really qualitatively what Tammy needs and what our organization needs and what our particular nonprofits need. They really do need someone that understands their finances, that understands their limitations related to that, but also understands programming and contract. I think even when I applied, this was something that I talked about, is that there has to be a very specific focus on what you wrote in your proposal, what you're contracted to do, and what your budget looks like, and how you are actually reconciling those expenses within the scope of that. That is going to take some significant hand-holding. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just think that sometimes the people that are doing the finances are also driving the bus, are also doing the paperwork. They have limited capacity. And so rather than signing them up for a year-long training, we felt very strongly that this is a missing component amongst our staff, and that we would like to add this as a position. I haven't been a proponent of adding positions, but I will tell you it won't change our budget at all. We're just going to reallocate those training dollars more to having someone that's doing the work on the ground in those places with our programs. The other limitation that we have, and Tammy mentioned as a highlight, is she had $1 million in reimbursements. And we're grossly understaffed for getting that done and doing the level of depth that we need to do related to reviews. And so we really do feel like this position will be a combination of experience that might be challenging to find, but we feel like is necessary and would be what the trust needs and what our nonprofits very specifically need. So we have drafted this job description. We'll answer any questions you have about it, and then also a salary schedule for that particular position.
Excuse me. I will ask for a motion to approve, and if seconded, then open discussion on this item. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it has been motioned and seconded. So now, are there questions among the board? This was discussed in the Personnel Committee as well, and has been brought up as a need at some of our prior meetings in general, and I know at some of the subcommittee meetings as well. And do we have any further questions or discussion regarding this request? So this will be both a job description that we are voting on, as well as salary line as outlined in your attachment, but understanding that the organizational budget will not be changed at all. It will be a reallocation of dollars from another category to fill this position. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's meant to be very program-driven, so it will be hands-on with, we have 41 contracts right now. It's a lot. And so we definitely want to have that to build capacity, but we're not interested in increasing our administrative budget, so it is a reallocation of that. We still will have some dollars left after filling this position to do some of that very specific training for providers that PSC does have to offer, and we've had some conversations there as well that they can do some carve-out of particular programs at an individual cost, like you would for any sort of professional development, that we would be able to support as our providers are letting us know what their needs are. So,
And Lindsay, you said it's not going to increase the budget?
no, sir, it's a reallocation from dollars for outside training to actually have someone that will work hands-on with the providers.
And I think that's important that we say that administrative, because what the state and the state has asked all of us to not increase positions, and they're looking at every government entity. It's just critical that we say to taxpayers, particularly as we're going in, that we're not increasing the budget. I mean, because no one wants government to grow anymore. I mean, they're actually asking government to reduce rather than to grow. So we just need to be very aware of that.
Yes, we were. I mean, we took that definitely into account, and have had a really thoughtful process around that as well, what we would actually need and what would be most beneficial as we're hearing feedback from the providers themselves.
Well, I think, Commissioner, to your point, as I understand it from the various committees that this had been discussed in, is that we have both monies going out, obviously, in the way of grants and needing close or perhaps even closer scrutiny of the entire contents of contracts, et cetera, on the front end as those dollars are going out. And then we've had dollars return in that weren't used by various programs and accounting for that revenue that's coming back in, again, relative to contracts. And then using those dollars, such as we did this past year with the CARES grants, to then take those and reallocate those out to yet more programs, and trying to keep up with all of that. Money's out, money's in, money's reallocated, changes in contracts or requests for changes, et cetera, that this will help that and hopefully address the commissioner's concern of not only not increasing dollars and expenses for the taxpayers, but actually showing greater efficiency and transparency in the way that we are hopefully reasonably and responsibly stewarding those dollars.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And so I want, just a point of clarification, not necessarily, I don't have any concerns. I'm clearly laying out, what comes from Tallahassee.
All righty.
So I don't have any concerns. I mean, it's.
Thank you for that,
What's
Commissioner.
coming. When are these positions geared up to open up?
Well, Michael's is already.
Well, I know not
in
Michael's.
that,
I'm
but
saying the
this
new
one-
position.
Well, we needed full board approval. It's in the October budget. It was already in there anyway for outside training.
Yeah, I'm not, another point.
But yes, we were
Yeah, I'm not
looking at-
discussing Michael's position. I'm only discussing the new positions. He's
It would be
very
for
worthy
this
of anything
fiscal
that he's
year.
getting.
This fiscal year that started October 1st.
Okay.
How long it'll take us to hire for that, I don't know. But we certainly want to bring the right person to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Motion again was made and seconded. So all in favor of approval of the job description and with said approval of the description, beginning recruitment for said position. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you. The next will be website review, upcoming outreach opportunities by the new communications manager, Mr. Moore.
Good morning, everyone. Could we get the laptop? Thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and start with our upcoming outreach opportunities that we have coming up for the month. October is always a busy month for us. We started out this month with Commissioner May at the Soul Bowl on October 4th. We were out there to tell all of the community members that were there at the Wahoo Stadium about the programs and services that we have to offer here at no cost. And on October 23rd, we will be at the Healthy Start Trunk or Treat. Going back to October 18th, we'll be at Healthy Halloween at Sacred Heart. On October 25th, we will be at the Help Me Grow Scambia Touch a Truck or Trunk. Yeah, it's a tongue twister. That's October 25th. October 30th, we'll be at the Boys and Girls Club for their trunk or treat. And on October 31st, we'll be with YMCA at Olive Baptist Church for the Little Pumpkins Jamboree. And also, October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Month. So as you know, at the Trust, that is one of our core indicators that we are trying to combat here in Escambia County. So along with breast cancer, we are also with our mothers and children who are honoring Pregnancy and Infant Loss Month. Now on to our brand new website. When Lindsay started, she asked me, "What do you need from me?" That was her first question when she started on her first day. And my response was, "We need a new website." So we've been diligently working on this for months to make it more user-friendly and to make it just more appealing to the public eye, the staff eye, the board's eye, everyone's eye. So, and thanks to Mr. Waldo, we've also made some changes, to make it easier for the public to navigate this website. So if you see here, there's 2 different websites that you can choose from. So if you're a parent or a guardian, you can click on the left side, and this website, it has mainly resources and all of the support for families. And if you're a partner or community member just wanting to find the data and everything, all of the numbers, you'll click on the right side. So we're going to click on this this hyperlink right here that says, "Take me straight to the data." And once we click on this, it'll take you to our impact reports page. And this page consists of our annual report, our mental health report, and our out of school time report. And if you scroll down more, it has our indicator report card, our strategic plan that we've completed with ID Group. It has our needs assessment that was completed, our funding results, so all of the programs that we fund in Escambia County, and also our taxpayer funds report, which is updated monthly. We also have a brand new page on our website under the About tab that is labeled Frequently Asked Questions. So if the public has any questions and they would like to, just get them answered quickly before they call us or email us, they could click on that tab. And we have a brand new page of frequently asked questions. If you are looking for any of our upcoming meetings, you can click on our meetings tab. If you want to go to our resources, we have our resources here. It has our resource guide, which comes out annually. We have our provider hub that has all of our programs listed and their location, the age groups that they serve, the distance it will take you to get there from wherever you are locally. And we have our legally required information, our marketing materials. If you want to join the grant review committee, we have that application available as well. Gonna go down to if you want to submit a public records request, we have that button available here on our website. We have our quick links here, funding applications, legally required information, join the grant committee, impact reports, and our SAMHSA training. Rick has done an awesome job of putting everything together for our providers, where they have videos showing them how to navigate SAMHSA, showing them how to input data into SAMHSA, and things of that nature. So do I have any questions from the board? That is just a quick overview of our brand new website.
Michael, that is very impressive, and I appreciate your mentioning and your incorporating Mr. Waldo's comments and others as we've worked to build this site. That looks very, very impressive, and importantly, looks very user-friendly, that someone who operates technically at the 5-year-old level, actually now seeing what my 5-year-old does, or my grandson, I'm probably less than that, but this is something that I can follow, and seeing the tabs and things, so that is very, appears to be very user-friendly, so thank you for that.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Michael regarding the website?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now programs. Ms. Cannon, up again. This is some follow-up regarding the discussion we had on the mental health programs and providers renewals at the last meeting, and went back to staff review that then led to some further discussions at our various committee meetings earlier this month. And so we are now here looking at some of this material for a second time with some further explanation and information, and we have several packets here in our larger packet for additional information as well. So, Ms. Cannon?
So we've had multiple meetings regarding the mental health renewals. The most recent meeting that we had really delved into 3 specific providers. There were a lot of very specific questions related to expenses and how they actually applied back to original proposals and what that looked like. So we were able to bring those providers in and have some discussion. What you have with you is the most updated budgets that we received from them last week that took into account those questions that the second program committee meeting actually had related to how these expenses are relating back to their actual project. We've addressed mission drift with some of them, which happens, I think, naturally as you're growing, and really needing to refine that. But these are, after all of those questions were answered, the program committee did come and settle on recommending these to move forward for year 3. I definitely think that these are different type of programming because they're informal mental health supports. We hear a lot about mental health and how it's a need, but this is not certified counselors going in and doing billable work. This is prevention and early intervention. So they come in different packages. So what I will say is I think that they're doing a lot of really great work. There is questions about how they were funded to begin with and what they're doing with some of their funding as they move forward. And the program committee was satisfied with the responses and discussion from our last meeting. But of course, we'll answer any questions, and I think some of the providers may be here as well.
I have other questions.
Okay.
My first one is, when we originally did the grants, when they did a grant request, they used to have, or some of them had like matching funds or other income. None of these budgets have income from other funds. So are we the only money running all of the organizations? Because like we used to ask them like if they brought money in or like what their budget looked like, and all of the money accounted for came directly from us. So are they not getting any other grants or any other funding? Because that was something that we had talked about before as far as longevity of the programs. All of these only have our requests, and all the money allocated is coming from our budget.
So Tori, we took the request of other funds off of these budget sheets because it made it more complicated of trying to figure out then on their total budget, where's that 50,000 of your other funds coming out of on your expense line items. So we had to go back and forth with them a lot on what they were paying with the other 50 or whatever dollar amount they had. So we took it off of here, but in SAMUS, when they're doing their applications, it does have a spot in there that shows.
Okay, because I would like to know that. And then, did we get the audit and tax information for all of these organizations? Do we have the audit and tax information?
Yes, we have everything from all the organizations that are up to date. The only one that is not is Twin Oaks. They had an issue with their audit, so they were able to send us 2023 and a letter from their auditor saying that they are currently processing 2024.
So
But we have
that's
not received.
So
that
I
one
think
yet.
that for that one, I don't, in my personal opinion, I have an issue with funding that without having that information. And then, if we want to start with Twin Oaks, I was reading over the explanation for this $30,000 funding, and I know I mentioned at the last board meeting, my concern was when we talked about per person, how much it was allocated, I still don't see an explanation.
Which one are you on,
for
sorry?
Twin Oaks.
Oh, Twin Oaks, okay.
The boxing was like 300, well, how much was that per person? I'm on question 11. Under direct services, the $30,000. 10% of that is like going to one child. So I think it was like $360 per boxing, wasn't it? Is that what they were billing us for one child?
So if you're speaking about the boxing,
Yes.
Lessons,
Like
it is-
like they serve, I forgot, how much did they say they served? Like, was it
It's
like 1,000 kids or 700 kids?
$240 a month per child, and they have 3 children enrolled in it
How
right
much?
now. $240 a month per
240.
child.
So almost like 10% of this budget is going to like one, if you break that up, almost 8% of this $30,000 a year will be going to one child, right?
Yeah, I don't know if the child will be enrolled for all year or not. They don't have a set limit. They go based completely on what the child actually needs. So that is an area that they direct for children that are expressing ways that they need to be able to learn how to channel their anger in a better manner.
And I understand that.
They do not have a formula for how they do that. They have a chain of command within their organization where they vet out these particular opportunities. So it could be paying for football or cheerleading.
But they also have a football, I mean, they have a sports. So is boxing not considered a sport? Because they also have a line item for sports. So is boxing not sports?
So that 30,000 includes the 24 and the 6. The 24,000 is for sports, arts, and recreation registrations, and then they have 6,000 for clothing. And those add
So
together
is it
make-
registration? So is it registration, because boxing is not registration, that's a monthly fee. So is it
You're right, that-
registration or sports?
And that's where it has the participation fee, so it's both. They pay for, if they have a registration fee, they have paid for the uniforms that may be needed. For cheerleader, they have paid for football registration and uniforms, so they have paid quite a few different areas in the sports. So the boxing fees, they pay those as the,
Yeah, and that's what my concern is, because it said registration. I understand registration, but monthly boxing is not registration. So are they paying?
Tori, can I just add something to you, which I think is foolishness? There are over 40, 50,000 children that play Little League sports here. Many are poor. And when you go down this slippery slope of us paying for baseball players, football, cheerleaders, and everybody's eligible, that's a bad precedent for this organization to be doing. Because I represent thousands of kids who are poor, that don't get a dime, who live in the pockets of poverty. And I can just tell you, it happens at Brent, it happens all across here at West Pensacola. And we have organizations that are paying for kids to play Little League sports. You know, and so what's the criteria? And so if we're gonna pay for one, it should be open up.
Well, my question is.
Why aren't we paying for every kid? That's sponsorship, kids have been playing Little League sports in perpetuity for 100 years. This was to provide children an opportunity when we got this trust to do things that they were not eligible to do. And now we are taking taxpayer dollars, and I'm gonna tell you, that's a slippery slope where we're going to citizens when we're paying for kids to participate in basketball and football and cheerleading and all those things. I adamantly oppose it, and I will always vote against it because there are, probably 50,000 children that play Little League sports that are not eligible to get this assistance because they didn't sign up for this program. And so,
And I guess my question is I don't think
this
this was in the budget. Like, I don't recall as, like, the original budget, I don't recall us agreeing, like, I don't think this was an original budget. And that's where I'm going back to as well. Like, I have an issue with you applying for something and then allocating the money somewhere else when that's not what the original proposal came to. So I have a problem with that as well. I already also have a problem that we don't have the audit for the past year. And if you're charging us $17,000 a year for auditing services, we're halfway through 2025 and we don't have 24. So I also have an issue with funding this without having that. And then also direct services. When I read this, direct services, this explanation is not sufficient for me. Because that's not when we thought direct services, they broke down this $129,000 by 12.95 people to $10,000 a month. That's not telling me what we're doing with that money. I thought direct services was for like oversight of like the executive director or things that aren't direct staff. We're breaking this down by people and saying it's $10,000 a month. Who's getting that $10,000? So I have a problem with that as well. That's just for the first one. I have a few more. Sorry, I was taking notes. And I apologize for not being at the program meeting last month. I had to spend time with my daughter, which is a priority, and it was a emergency on that end. So I do apologize for missing that meeting. Then we're going to go to New World.
So can I just say something since you're on that?
Yes.
And so when we're talking about paying kids registration fees, which I think every kid should participate in. If kids can't do it, we ought to scholarship and find that. So, in no way I do that. But when you're almost looking at personnel and benefits, $700,000, $662 and $105. IT services, as you said, $17,000. Lease and rental spaces, $26,000. Telephones, $10,000. Liability insurance, $29,000. I just don't know if people I have to see the procurement on that to see if those numbers really make sense. I mean, staff travel, $60,000. And then we're saying that we're paying for kids to go play and participate on a public field, to go play a sport, that they don't even have to come to this office. And these kids have never left the jurisdiction of Escambia County, but we're paying $60,000 for staff to go out of town. I mean, advertising and marketing, $15,000. I promise you, you don't have to advertise for kids to come play sports. They just come. And so I don't know. I mean, I'd have to have a better breakdown of all this to feel good about it. I'll take the recommendations, but I have a lot of questions, not only this group, but a lot of groups. I mean, those numbers just don't jive with me. And again, this is going to be before the voters again. And with these type of expenditures, I just don't know what type of support we're going to get. But anyway, so I just wanted to add that to yours, Tori, because I was at the meeting, but I left early, and I'll probably leave this meeting early. But just kind of having the discussion since you brought it up. I would not have had it, but since you brought it up, I mean, it's a great time to have it.
Commissioner May, the $60,000 that you put in there for the travel, if you look at the first column, that was their original request for year 3. Year 3 new request is in the second column.
Okay.
They've changed that down to $10,000.
Wow, they woke up. Great.
But my issue is you change it to 10,000, but then you don't get to just move the money somewhere else. And so you just can't make up somewhere else to put the money because you want to keep it. That's why I have a problem, is every time we question, and want, not just this one, but like if we question something and you don't use that money, you don't get to go say, well, I want to make up another job title and move the money there. Like, that's where I have a problem. And then with, and I also have a question, because they had, they decreased the benefits by $29,000, but then they increased the salary by $25,000. So again, did they add more people? Did they add more staff? Because why did they increase salary?
So they increased the salary because they did a CARES grant application last year, and we asked them to incorporate that into their current grant instead of funding it. So they added a new position, the ambassador coordinator, for $27,000, which is what we had asked them to do, to put that into this grant instead of giving them a new CARES grant. And we did do a budget amendment for that was approved.
Okay, and under the explanation, it was like CEO, COO, and CFO. But then on the explanation, when they wrote it out, they broke that down by 12.95 people to $10,000. So are they saying that they're paying 12.95 of the indirect staff the $10,000? Is that what that is?
So are you looking under the indirect expenses?
I'm looking at the explanation.
Yeah, are you looking at the explanation for indirect expenses?
Yes.
Yes, and they did resend us a new paragraph that I don't know, we'll have to send it to you, but it did break out more detail on here that somehow, how it didn't get put in here. Is it there?
Yeah, it just says 12.95, but who are those 12.95 people? To me, I took that explanation as the people that they currently employ under salary. So who are those?
So they're not the people that are underneath their salary list. Those are going to be the people that are in their organization, in their administrative offices, like the chief executive officer, the CFO. Bigger agencies have different departments that fund, that work for the whole agency, not just one program. And so those are what they take into the expenses from that department. Those departments are what become their indirect expenses.
Because I'm counting 11 titles, but they said 12.95.
Okay, this is something that they did not understand the question. So in this one where it says question 13, indirect, where it's got that 12 FTE, they thought we were asking them to base their indirect off of their current staffing, not what they are actually paying. So if you go back to the budget explanation on this one, that's the actual where you're asking about the CFO, COO, all of that. That is actually what they spend indirect on. They thought we were asking for some sort of calculation.
Okay.
And we were not. So that is an incorrect. That's what they sent us originally, and we went back and said, that's not what the question was. What are you actually spending your indirect on? And that was it.
Okay, Well, I also
Does that
would-
make sense?
Yeah, I would like to see a breakdown of how that's split up between those positions, because it says they allocate 2.4% for those 11 positions. So I would also like to know what that covers, and so that's that one. But again, I have a problem because we don't have the audit, so that's.
So can I just interject, because I know you have the floor? Lindsay, it's kind of like, to me, and I get, that what was requested in the original, what was requested year 3, I mean, your incompetency of writing a grant is not our responsibility, you know what I mean? And so, did you not know the first year that you wrote a grant that you needed to feed children? And so then, you have no money in it, in the first year for food and snacks, and then because you're caught on something, you move it over to $20,000 for food and snacks. Anybody knows in any program you got to feed children. So to me, those are the inconsistencies that, to me, raise a flag. I mean, I got it. You moved it over but in the original grant, you didn't understand that children needed to eat. But then once you had to move some money because you spending, $60,000 in out-of-town travel for staff, you move it over, say, now we're going to feed the children? What were we going to do originally? And those are some of the questions, Lindsay, that
Well,
bother me.
but I think part of that is our response to that. We're not going to pay for that at $60,000. Therefore, what are the other needs of the kids in the program? And so it's not structured like we would have like a Fed grant or, a state grant that would say, this is how you do this program, this is it. So these are.
No, and I get that you're not going to pay
You know what I'm
it.
saying? But that's really it. So if you already had a budget that was approved over the 3 years, what are your needs?
But see, I don't.
And that's our fault, and me as a board member.
We don't have to do it. I'm just telling you, that is what the process has been like for all of them. How is this working? Because they weren't supposed to be things that we were already doing. They were supposed to be things that were filling gaps. And so if they've identified that as a gap, they're going to.
But that should have came to the program committee first, and these things didn't come to the program committee. So I understand that's a need, but my problem with that is you have $1 million budget. So if you got extra, like there are programs that don't have the funds for that, so they go out and find them, but you don't get to keep your money and move it around because you asked for extra money. Like, that's why I have a problem. If you don't use it under the line item that you wrote the grant for, that money should come back to the grant and allow us to help somebody else. You don't just get to, well, I don't need $50,000 here, so now I'm gonna find somewhere to spend the money, because we have people working with 1/10 of that budget, and if they need something, they gotta go apply for another grant. So that's why I have a problem, is making up line items to keep the money. The money should come back to us. So if you ask for something in the second or third year and you don't use it, that money comes back for if we decide to do the CARES grant. You don't, to me, and it never came, nobody ever came to the programs committee and said, we would like to do this with the money. You just put it in the budget and want us to approve it, and that's not how that works. And I have a problem with that, with New World Landing.
And toward my last thing for this, and Lindsay, I have it. These programs were existing, they have people, and you tell me when you take this grant that, there's $129,000 in indirect for a CEO, a COO, CFO, payroll manager, HR director, and they literally were doing these programs and had these things, and we know that there's some institutional inherent things that people do. It's great that they got another $1 million, but we add another $129,000, $870 for indirect costs to these people that are going to have a job, whether this grant exists or not. To me, if that doesn't raise a flag, then there's a problem. And then when you look at the percentage of money that's going to direct services versus going to salaries and indirect, I mean, it's just disproportionately unfair to me, to the children who this money is intended for. And so that'll be my last comment on that, Tori.
Well,
It's your
but I
lead.
think we would need some direct guidance from you all, what your expectations are related to this, because these were funded before I walked in, right? I mean, and so.
I'm taking responsibility as a policy
Okay,
member,
well,
but
I'm
I'm
saying, so
gonna
then
make
we
it
need-
plain today of what I
Yeah.
support. I'm not gonna support it anymore.
Think-
Yeah.
Can we-
Okay,
can
and I
we-
think that's part of growth, right? That's part of learning.
Can I
but
make
we
the
have
sug-
to be able to.
the suggestion that we take these individually and vote on them individually, and then the ones that we have questions with, we have a program committee that we can all be at, that's scheduled, more than a
Sure.
few days out, that we can all be at to discuss this and delve into this, because I think we're gonna be up here. I just think there's some, like, for example, Youth Left Behind, I'm great with this. I mean, Hassan is doing a great job, and I'm fine with this, approving this
agree.
one and moving forward, so.
I agree. I'm fine with that as well. I just had
think we should
additional
go through each
questions.
one, and then let's schedule a meeting where we can all be at and make sure we're all there, and we can, and hash this out.
And mind you, these questions I'm asking these questions were asked before, so.
Do
Most
we
of them.
need a motion for that?
I need a motion to take these individually, each, what is it?
Second that?
Each mental health renewal individually. Okay.
Okay,
And-
Seconded by Ms. Kane. Any further discussion? So the motion is to take each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 programs individually and consider them. And then those that are not approved will go back to program committee for further discussion. So any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. So we will take them, I guess, in the order in which you've got them listed here. So the Boys and Girls Club program first. Second. Any further discussion on the Boys and Girls Club? The only point I would point out, Tammy, is on the yellow line there, the figure of 28,126 is a reduction, so would be in parentheses, indicating a reduction in their request from 104,000 to 76,000. So all in favor of, or motion to approve the Boys and Girls Club?
Aye.
Okay, so that one passed. Okay, the next one is the New World Believers Incorporated. Let me flip to find that one specifically. Okay, that one is an overall reduction of 11,778, decreasing their budget from 597 to 585. Is there a motion to approve that one?
Motion.
And seconded?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Is that one that we feel comfortable with, or do people have reservations on that one?
I have reservations on the salaries.
Yeah.
I want to take that back and see if we're the only one. To see if we're the only one providing the salaries for the directors.
Okay.
That's my concern.
So
But if the program committee the last time discussed this, I had work obligations, I could not be there.
No, I have questions too.
If a program committee feels comfortable with that and they discuss that, then I will accept what they discussed.
I have questions.
So,
Okay, so then we will call it has been motioned to be approved, and so the option would be to not approve it, in which case it will go back to the program committee for further discussion. So all in favor of
A quick question,
approving-
that doesn't stop their operations right now, does
Yes,
it?
please. I'm
It
sorry.
doesn't stop their operations if we don't approve it, does it?
No.
Well, I would say they're operating without a current contract. Now, we can have a contract that's retroactive back to
Oh,
October
okay.
1st. But we need clarity on what we want to fund and what we don't want to fund, and then what they would agree to do with cuts or rearranging the budget.
It's fine, I was just wondering, that's fine, that's fine, Stephanie, I was just asking.
Oh, sorry.
The risk would be if they continue to operate and you ultimately don't approve, so there's nothing retroactive to cover their current expenses.
Yeah, I have a question. So we're voting to bring them back and answer some questions that we have concerning payment to.
Yeah, I believe that's your motion on the table.
You just want a point of clarification for them, probably in writing, Stephanie, about those positions, is what you're requesting?
well, yes, I mean, we're paying, I'm definitely fine paying salaries for people who are working hard for our kids. I just want to make sure that, as Tori suggested, that we are not the only ones giving them the salaries. And so, I just want, but if the program committee has discussed this and.
No, I left. I was not
I'm going
there.
to go forward and just
I
say, let's go
I was
for it.
not there.
It was not discussed, not in depth around the salaries. But there were explanations related to the staffing pattern that would lead to that, so.
Where are those explanations? They weren't in our
Is
packet.
it in, I've got it at.
So did they answer the questions
It's here.
about the staffing
It's here.
patterns at that
Oh, I
meeting?
saw that.
They provided everything that was asked from the questions.
So what's on the
So
table?
there were no further questions about that, but it's there.
So we have a motion on the table this, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
So
I got it.
all in favor of tabling this, the motion was to vote to approve it as it existed, but with the understanding that if not approved, it would go back to the program committee. So all in favor of approving it? All in favor of not approving it and it going back to the program committee?
Yeah.
Yes. I thought the motion was to approve.
Correct, and I was just stating that if it is not approved, that the result will be that it will go back to the program committee, and that will be a result of not approving.
Hold on.
I was just recommending. Yeah, I was just recommending you take a roll call.
it's not denied.
Correct. Correct,
No,
correct. It
take
would
it back.
simply go back to the program committee for reconsideration and further discussion.
No, I think they do great work. I just want to, the last program committee was scheduled very quickly, and I was unable to be there due to other obligations, and so I just wanted to.
Well, I will
was-
tell you, there were so few of us there that we did not have a quorum to vote on anything. All we could do was recommend it come to the board where it would be voted on. And so at this point in time, the vote will be to either approve it as submitted, or failure to approve it as submitted will result in it going back to the program committee.
Let me ask this question, for clarity, at least for my own sake. Is there a way, for the motion to allow the program to continue and be funded so that they can continue to provide services to children, and then specify for that particular time period what that funding is going to be, what time frame that funding will be released to this group to be able to do their work, and then that way they could be reimbursed if decision at the program committee on what you wanted to do going forward.
Because it's 30 days reimbursement, right?
Yeah, 30 days
All of a sudden say
extension.
today, we're not going to fund it.
You could,
But they have 30 days to reimburse. Couldn't we have a meeting within 30 days to be?
That's what we were just saying. We could do, I guess you could have a motion for a 30-day extension so that we, on their contract, so we would reimburse currently as we are figuring this out, and then the new contract would start as of the date.
Because the truth is, if they've submitted some reimbursements that were not eligible, we're not going to pay them
We don't pay
regardless.
them anyway if they're not
I
eligible.
mean, if they're not eligible, they're just not going to get paid. If there's some violation of the policy, we should not pay it.
Correct. We don't.
So, Mr. Leonard, was that a motion?
you could call it an amended.
Amendment, a friendly amendment to the motion.
Okay.
That's what that is.
An amendment for a 30-day extension of time under the current terms of the current contract,
Thank you, Megan.
and
Sure.
then tabling
Tabling the decision, and during
on
that
the third-year
30-day
renewal
period,
until your
it will
next.
go back to the program committee for further discussion.
Mr. Leonard, is that the motion?
So,
Thank you, Megan.
does the committee
Second.
or the board understand that amended
We
motion?
have a second from Steph.
And if so, all in favor of the amended motion
For New World Believers?
for New World Believers? Yes.
Okay.
Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that will, again, 30-day extension, during which time there will be a review and discussion at the program committee with anticipation that it will come back to the board as a whole next month for a decision at that time. Yes, Tammy?
Thank you. I want to remind everybody of consistency, and I'm not talking about the extension, but like New World Believers has a bunch of new line items that weren't in year one, that are on year three. And if you're not going to allow it for one provider, we need to make sure you don't allow it for others. I just want to make sure you guys are consistent in what your determinations are.
That's
So we
correct.
know, we have guidance on how to go forward. If we're not allowing budget amendments, if we're not, we have to have that guidance.
That's correct.
Okay. And if you could help us make sure we don't overlook that, Tammy, would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, so we've done Boys and Girls Clubs, and we've done New World Believer. That brings us up to Youth Left Behind. And again, we have that packet in the,
Motion.
our overall packet.
To approve.
And so looking at them, do we have a motion to approve
Motion.
that? Second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion regarding that proposal?
No.
There's also things that are in year 3 that were not in the original request.
Thank you for noting that. And so the suggestion would be that this also needs to go back to program committee for review then, or we could motion to disapprove those.
Well, those items were written in detail. I don't have a question about them. I don't know if anybody else does.
Further comment? Comment from staff, direction.
No, I was just pointing out, like, we're comfortable with the Youth Left Behind budget, but as we were just discussing, there are
Yes.
line items that have been moved that were never originally requested. So
Okay.
if we need to send this back to program committee, we can, for consistency's sake.
So the net issue I'm noting on theirs is that there is no change in their budget itself. The overall amount is just a line item resulting in some reallocations of dollars.
I agree with that. I'm fine with that as well.
Any others with comments regarding those
The
reallocations?
reason I didn't question it is because like equipment, when I look at the items that they moved the lines item to, that to me looks like a more, like a explanation of what equipment was. Instead of just saying equipment, you've broken down the detail of what equipment is. That's why I didn't have a question, because the items that were added look like equipment to me. But if we want to take it back to discuss, I'm fine with that. Like, I could see those items aligning like equipment, but I do understand if we want to take it back to ask questions.
Okay. Any further comments or discussion? All right. Those in favor of approval for the Youth Left Behind request, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that one is approved. That takes us to the Twin Oaks, which began our discussion. And motion would be similar to the motion that we proposed on the other one, that we would continue a 30-day extension of the current budget and payment, with the idea that in that 30-day, there would be further review by the program committee, and then the recommendations of the program committee would come back to the board in 30 days for the next general board meeting. Is that the motion?
Yes. Motion.
Seconded? Okay. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that one will
Dr.
go
Northrup?
back.
I am not sure that they will have enough funds left in their current budget to continue them for 30 days.
I'm sorry.
I am not sure that they will have enough funding left in their current budget to fund them for 30 more days. So are we going to add additional funding to their current contract if they run out?
That would be the expectation if we're extending it for 30 days, correct?
Okay, so we could do an amendment to add.
Do an amendment.
To add funding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think some of that contingency funding in order to keep them solvent for this next 30 days. And then lastly is lamp lighters, there it is. The lamp lighters proposal,
I have questions.
which is an overall reduction. Do we have
Mr. Chair.
a motion to
Mr. Chair.
approve lamp lighters?
Mr.
as-
Chair,
Yes.
Yeah, I will be abstaining from voting on this one because I'm on the board of directors with the Lamplighters.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve and/or do you anticipate
And the
there
motion,
being an
yes,
extension?
an extension.
Okay, motion to approve, second for discussion.
Go back, yes.
Okay, so that a second for that motion. Okay, now further discussion on it. And this is the same motion to 30-day
Yes.
extension. With the idea that one will go back to the program committee for further discussion.
What are, can I ask before you vote, what are the
Please.
things that are just, that are concerns for this one?
My concerns are, let me find my notes. My concerns are the line items for the positions because these do not align. We've had numerous budget requests, and every time the description of the staff changes, and this is not in the original grant explanation of what these positions are. And if you go back and look at the grant, none of, like, these titles and positions are not listed. And so my concern is, like, you can't just keep, you making up titles, and that's not what the original grant asked for. I also have questions about,
And that would be under the category of other professional services,
yes,
contract labor.
this is not matched with the grant.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
I have additional ones, but that's the first one.
so the motion is similar to the other two, is that this would be a 30-day extension of the current contract with the understanding that during that 30-day period, there will be a review of this contract for Lamplighters. That discussion and the decision would then be brought back to the board at our next board meeting in 30 days for a vote to approve that. And that has been seconded. All in favor of that with the abstention of Mr. Williams noted. Other members voting all in favor?
Aye.
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 Others in favor? And-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
unfortunately, I do chair the Area Housing Commission, and we have an audit, and my meeting starts at 11 for area housing, so I'm literally going to have to leave in about 5 minutes. So
Okay,
if there's
we
anything
should
that you
be-
need another vote on, I'd
Should be.
like to bring it forward, because I do chair that meeting at Area Housing, so I have to be gone.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question concerning the scheduling of the next meeting with the program committee meeting. Will we have a special meeting or will it be our regular program date that we will discuss these items?
When's our next meeting? Of this month?
The current one scheduled will be on the 28th. However, if you all need it sooner, I can start working on it.
That's within 30 days. I mean, so to me, that would be great.
Could we,
Yeah, it's,
can we move up the time a little bit earlier than 1 o'clock and do,
Yeah, that's a
12
bad
or
time. Could we
something,
do it in
like,
the
to give us a
morning?
little-
You'll prefer morning meetings? Sure.
Yes.
yes, please.
Yeah,
1
the
o'clock is just
is
bad.
so hard, yeah.
And we need a commitment to be there. I mean, that's,
Yes.
Unless it's a family emergency.
Okay.
Hold on, if we could do it, that's,
So,
if we could do it in the morning, you would have my commitment to be there. 1 o'clock, I don't know if you have my
Let me
commitment to be
double
there.
check, let me make sure I don't have a work commitment.
so the motion passed to move that one to program committee as well.
And Mr. Chairman, it's pretty clear for a request for information for any grant is to request information, to have it been in writing. We don't need a big dialogue or conversation. You know, board members can talk to staff and hear our questions, submit that to the committee, and they can report the information. I don't need a presentation from them, and I don't need debate. Stephanie has questions, I have questions, action information. A failure to not reply constitutes that it's done. And so that's all I'm requesting. Whatever information each board member wants, we should send it to them in writing, give them ample amount of time to respond. If they don't respond, they just don't respond. I mean, rather than us come trying to get a bunch of explanations, because that's just going to be, for us spending, half our day there, Coach. I mean, and, love it, but I'm not going to spend half my day there for information that's been previously requested. I mean, obviously, these things have been requested. They have not been returned. Here's your final request to submit this information. Either you do or you don't.
I think that the requests and explanations are there. I think that we need to have a process by which what you want to approve and you feel like would be appropriate within the budget, because these were things that were looked at differently. We're allowed to do budget amendments within 10%. Anything over that comes to the board, whether that's a, program committee onto the board or at renewal. So we probably need to clarify some guidance at program committee and how you want to look at these sort of things, because what you're talking about is a change in process, which is fine, but we all need to come to consensus on what that looks like so that we certainly can let our providers know that and that they could budget accordingly.
And I have no problem with that, but,
Yeah.
and even the 10%, but when you're looking at title changes, that's a change of scope. That's not a change of budget. When you've added or changed descriptions of positions or added additional positions, then you're not following the scope of what you presented to us. And that's where I have a concern, is the scope of what the program is supposed to be and what the program currently is. And that's not, so you can't change the scope of the program, because when you're not doing what you wrote in the grant and you have different titles, that means those people aren't doing what was presented to us to begin with.
Unless there's a scale up, I think that would be something different. We can talk about that program committee. Like, first year, you don't hire everybody, but second year, you're going to serve more, so you would hire on, but.
But you're not even meeting your max. You're not meeting
But
that.
if they are, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, that would be a natural progression for us to look at, but we just need guidance.
I agree.
on How you want us to look at it. Sure.
Okay, the next item of.
And Lindsay, these are all the mental health grants, right? This is all mental health. And Lindsay, I agree with you, and you were not here, but
I mean, I take
and
responsibility
it has to be,
for it.
you're right, it has to be a deeper conversation, because if we're going to provide mental health, let's provide mental health. We really should have that conversation, because I deal with a lot of children who have mental health issues, and we got to make sure that the services that we say we're providing, we are providing them. And so
And I don't
that's a
think
deeper
that was
dive.
very clear in the RFP.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think it was. We didn't prescribe anything. We will be doing that going forward, don't worry, but
There's a
not anything
criteria,
really
there's a
specific.
criteria that to provide mental health is like providing, whether it's behavioral health, whether it's physical health. I mean, there's criteria to be able to be a mental health counselor and
But
to
this
provide
is
the mental.
informal mental health. This isn't,
I know, I mean,
You
you've
know
had
what I
that,
mean? Like, that's
we've
what I'm
had that
saying.
conversation,
It's
but we're
informal,
spending
so it's
millions of
different.
dollars for informal mental health,
Just-
while children are going crazy every day. Mental health is serious, so it's informal, but we have the ability and we have the resources to provide real mental health, not informal. I don't want anybody to give me any informal health care about my diabetes or my blood pressure. Mental health is just as serious as that. We don't want informal help about people's pediatrics. But anyway, you're right, that's a longer conversation.
it is.
And one more question, for Mr. Chair, for clarification. The next program meeting is for discussion and not approval. Will we have to come back to this meeting to approve it?
Yes.
Yes, sir, it would have to come back through the,
Okay.
unless, can they vote to? Okay. Yeah, it would have to.
Okay, thank you.
But the hope would be that from the program committee, there would be a recommendation one way or the other. Yes, okay. Thank you. Now, our next business item, sole source application from Community Health Northwest Florida regarding a proposal to develop and provide services through a vision van. There's a one-page updated summary here from Community Health, and then there's a larger packet that the staff has put together regarding that.
Move that approval.
I have,
All in favor?
I have questions.
Okay.
I
Thank
did
you,
reach
Lindsay.
out to Lindsay to ask what is the difference because there is a free vision program that is currently across the state, and this program has been extended to kids in Escambia County. So I'm wondering, how is this sole source if there's another vision program?
Sure. I've asked Walter. I've shared that with them too, as partners within the health community. But I looked into it as well, but he could probably.
Sure, and thank you, board, trust members, for being here. So I did some research on that. So that specific program is funded to the tune of about $3.5 million a year. I also went through, as a parent who's had a child in Bailey Middle School here locally, trying to sign up for that. And basically, going through their online portal, what I got told is there has to be 30 other students or parents from a specific school before they would start the discussions. I also dug a little deeper on their website. So they had over 31,000 referrals on their last reporting year, but only provided about 11,000 proper eye exams, a little over 16,000 dilations. So you're seeing a delta of about half of the requests that come in don't even get filled. That organization is based out of Miami, and oddly enough also gets funded partially through their local Broward County Children's Trust. What would make our program different, and does make it different, is we're an FQHC. And so there's an integration of the medical with the optometry. So our proposal brings forward an optometrist, but the van build-out itself has the capability to house an ophthalmologist, which is different. So we're talking doctor, MD, versus somebody, an optometrist, who goes through a special level of training and schooling to be able to do those eye exams and provide those glasses. So there is some delineated differentiation. Also as well, in any data report that we provide the Children's Trust, we're not only showing the touch with that child within Escambia County to get those glasses, but we're gonna show global data of every other touch we make with that child, whether it be behavioral health services with licensed clinical social workers, whether it be with pediatric care, if the parent has adult primary care contacts, pharmacy, lab services, radiology, or reproductive health, depending on the age of the child.
So it basically would be the spectrum of what you all as the community health services provide to provide some degree of triage to those services in addition to strictly the eye services as well.
Correct. We're going to use the mobile optometry clinic. We've already labeled it the MOC, as MOC, as the point of entry. And similar to what we've done with our Healthy Schools program, the global data you're going to see is not just the touch that happens at that school site, but all over the place. And then also similar to our Healthy Schools program, we were allocated $100,000 this last year. I think we are drawing down only about $21,000. The intent of this program that's proposed, we have thrown the kitchen sink at it, but as our track record has demonstrated, we're only going to bill back to the trust what is not reimbursable or covered. So we're not trying to supplant any fundings. Also different to the program down in Miami is this is startup cost. Our business plan and our business model, because we're an FQHC, we can self-sustain. So once the van's purchased, once we get that staffing on board, we get them trained and we start running insurance, we can run a payer mix spread with our higher Medicaid reimbursement, as well as pulling down LIP dollars, which is a federal program that basically matches and increases our reimbursement for uninsured care. So there's a lot of different mechanisms that we're able to use within our business plan that differentiate us from that other program down in South Florida. And I appreciate you bringing that to light, because we've been trying to reach out to DOL, Department of Health in the state. And when I saw that program was getting some funding, and I was like, I know my next mission.
Very good.
So my other question is, well, you actually answered my second question. For those that are being, like, the first year you have the salaries. So when you say you won't bill us, are you saying if you see enough students with insurance, what are you saying you're not billing us for? Where would that come out of?
So we would run it similar to our track record with our Healthy Schools program. So when we see a patient, a child, we're running their insurance. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes back-end work that we do before we even send the unit releases. So we're making sure is there another payer source? So we're not supplanting. If we get into it and let's say we have a payer mix, so again, it's going to take us a couple months to get billing and credentialing on board because we really want to just provide services as quickly as possible. But once we get it going, let's say our payer mix is 60-40, 60% insured, 40% uninsured. We put that into what our outlay is as far as cost of service versus reimbursement coming back. And then whatever that delta is what we're going to bill back to the trust. So if the delta, is, let's say, only 20% of salaries is unreimbursed for that month or whatever that invoice period is, instead of pulling down that full 100% salary outlay, we're only going to pull down that 20%. And again, I point back to with Healthy Schools, we only pulled down 21% of our budget this last year. We were really able to utilize that other payer sources to ensure that we're not supplanting funding.
And is that for the entire cost? So when you say the 60-40, that would be for the entire cost of this first year. So if it was a 60-40 split, this 1.3 million would be a 60-40 split? I'm just using those as numbers.
Conceptually, yeah. So again, we would, a lot of it, so credentialing is a big deal. And so that's why we threw the kitchen sink, because credentialing is out of our control. We have to go to these insurance payer sources and we say, hey, we've got this new unit, credential us. So I don't know how long that will take before we're able to start fully reaping back in. But once it starts, again, I don't want to give an absolute, but my experience and my gut says is that we are not going to pull down the majority of that funding specifically for salaries.
And when you say salaries, but does that income also cover the cost of the van, or are we just talking about salaries when you talk about the insurance split? So if it's 60-40, are we talking about the insurance split but that doesn't include like the direct services or equipment or vehicle purchase?
So the van outlay, and that's really the intent of us coming to the Children's Trust, is y'all would really be paying for startup costs, and the startup cost outlay is that van. Because we've got, and again, we would order the van. Once we get it in, we'd send y'all the invoice. There's a lot of very expensive equipment that has to go on that van to be able to provide services. There's even specialized chairs, because again, the chair that goes in your optometrist office is a lot more sensitive than the chair you can't bump it. And so there's more expensive chairs that go on these mobile vans, so that when they go over speed bumps or they hit a pothole, they don't need to be recalibrated.
And so, I'm asking for clarification because in the past, we didn't know these questions to ask so that I understand. So then I'm not asking these questions on the latter end. When we look at the budget, what are startup costs that you're considering? Are we talking about like the 5,000, the 7,500, the 100,000, the 117, the 403, and then the 324?
So the initial startup cost is, as soon as we get contracts executed, we would actually go ahead and order the van. And so that's your vehicle purchase. That line item is $403,312. At that same time that we order the van, we would be looking at the equipment cost line item that's $117,000, and we would be looking at the supply line item, which is $100,000. The direct client assistance line, so those are the hard costs for startup.
So the 100,000, the 403,000, the 117, and the 324.
And even within that budget, we don't know if it's going to take that full amount, because given, the economic climate, tariffs, prices have gone up, because when we started this grant application, or started putting this grant application together, it was over a year ago. And so while we do have some quotes and stuff, we also wanted to make sure that we left room in case costs has increased. But again, if it costs less, that money's going to come back to the trust.
Does the van operator fall under the FQHC category? So your services there will be eligible for that enhanced reimbursement. Oh, great.
Correct. Wherever that van goes, it is an extension of whatever its home site. So right now, our mobile units are based out of our 2315 West Jackson Street location. And so wherever that van goes, it is no different than if you walk into a brick and mortar as far as credentialing, insurance liability. That's one of the other great things of an FQHC is our tort protection when it comes to provider liability. So again, we're able to provide a service at a drastically lower cost than even other nonprofits that are in the healthcare space.
Great. All right, thank you.
And so my question is what makes this a sole source over the program that comes to the county? Can you answer?
Well, this isn't something that's serving Escambia County. They have 4 buses that are statewide, and they're not serving. The interesting thing related to this is, as much as we've needed optometry, we've never heard of these folks. There's also a coordinating effort as well that has to happen on the front end. So unless the school district knows about that other organization, even from the nonprofit side, I'd not.
Well, the school
heard of
district
it.
does because the principal's got the email.
But I mean, that's not anything that I can control. What we do have is someone that's already integrated into our schools. It's a local FQHC and can continue to look at the whole health spectrum for our kids that starts with the eyes. So I think that makes it qualitatively different than this other one that's just bringing in.
So what makes it a sole source that they provide additional services outside of just optometry? I mean,
They're the only ones that are doing this locally, is what I'm saying. The other one is funded as a nonprofit. It's not a FQHC, which has a different funding mix, and it's completely dependent on things like Florida Blue, the trusts. I mean, those may not exist. So here's the other part of that. If we're looking at property taxes, this is an opportunity for our kids to have a point of entry and our families into optometry, which we know is actually a significant issue. What makes it different is that they're an FQHC. They're not another nonprofit. They're actually a full-on medical.
But I'm saying, can you explain, I guess maybe I'm not understanding.
The FQHC has enhanced funding
So that makes
by
it a sole source.
existence, which makes it, in essence, the eventuality of it becoming self-sustaining with no ongoing funding from us. The other program, being a nonprofit, has 2 things as I see it. One is it's not going to segue the people, whether it's the kid they're seeing, the adult they're seeing, or whoever has the ability by serving as a touch point for those to getting them into other services and programs that are provided through Community Health of Northwest Florida and serving to activate that. The one coming out of Miami is strictly there to provide optometry services. And if you need any further referrals or things, that's not their bag. You're not going to get it there. You're not going to get that triage and referral into other services that they themselves provide. The other thing is that they very likely would require ongoing support some way. As a nonprofit, they're not going to qualify for FQHC funding, which is enhanced funding from the government, that they get both a facilities fee, they get enhanced reimbursement for the providers working there, and those providers, as part of qualifying as an FQHC, you have to have provision of health services, you have to have provision of social workers, you have to have provision of these other providers that provide more of a holistic approach to an individual's needs. Again, whether it's an adult or it's a pediatric patient, they look at that and provide those services, and for that, they get enhanced reimbursement.
And I just want to be clear, I know the answer because I work for a plan. The reason I'm asking this question is for clarification for people that don't know the answer. He did answer questions that I had, but as far as it not being a sole source, I understand the answer. I knew the answer, but I'm asking because when we're looking at sole source and we look at other people that come to us for programs, they need to understand why this is a sole source over. I did reach out to Lindsay about the eye exams because I know the principals got those. I need an explanation on what makes your program different from the eye exam. Because when we look at sole source, if somebody came to us for a sole source grant, which we have in the past. And the question is, what makes your program different from the eye exam? And the difference is the explanation of the additional services that cost, and they don't offer that. I knew that answer after I researched it, but I needed that to be explained because, like I said, the other program is across the state. They do only provide eye exams. But if you're saying eye exams to eye exams, and somebody heard eye exams to eye exams, and we're looking at giving $1 million, and we have our constituents with questions about, well, we just went to you guys and said, why are we giving somebody $1 million and they can go here and get this eye exam for free? They need to understand that this is not just an eye exam. These are additional services. So that's what I'm trying to understand, because I don't see this anywhere on that paper. So if you're asking us to vote, I don't see that answer. And if somebody was to come back and say, well, the school said if we get 30 people, they can do an eye exam too, and they're coming to us. So why would we pay, almost $1 million to have a van or a bus come when somebody else from down south said they'll come up and do a school for free? Why would we not just use that option?
Well, and I think that's a very valid question. I always point, the euphemism I love as someone who does grants is if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And when we talk about the shrinking of government and not wanting to expand things, that organization from down south year over year gets funding from both the state government, nonprofits. What we're asking for, and I think this really differentiates us, putting the additional services, the integration, the fact that we're local, the fact that we're an FQHC, this is startup cost. This is get the resource that's never been in this community, get it up and running, and then we don't come see y'all again to fund it because of the uniqueness, as you know, and really explaining to the community, the uniqueness of an FQHC and the way that we can diversify our payer mix and pull resources from multiple different sources that's built into federal statute enables us to make dollars and make sense to support it long term. And again, just ran the numbers not too long ago. 18% of the care that we provide as an FQHC in Escambia and Santa Rosa counties is uncompensated care. 18%. When you take our overall budget of the organization, which is about $45 million a year, we provide about $8.5 million of uncompensated care every year. That's a differentiation. None of the other healthcare entities within this community can touch that percentage. The closest one, and it's a great community partner of ours, is about 1% of their overall budget is provided in uncompensated charity care. So that's the biggest thing, because again, we see policy changes that are coming down the pipe at the federal level and the state level. We want to be good fiduciary, good community partners that is also responsive to the way that government is changing both locally, statewide, and nationally. And because we have that experience and that ability to provide that free and charity care, that's what makes us sole source.
Well, and I would add as well, there can't be any other FQHCs locally except for you all, correct? So you would be the only one that would be able to offer that payer mix like you're talking about? Okay, thank you.
That's what I was, and the only reason I say that is because we have to be very forward, proactive instead of reactive. And when we're looking at there being a concern with how we're spending our money, I needed that information to be visible and upfront, because I did my research on the back end, but we also have statements that might be made that don't clarify that. And so if that question is asked now and people understand now what makes you different from another organization that would not access for that money, this is why this program is needed, and the ability to be able to, like you said, run once you get those funds. And your organization has shown in the past, when we helped with the dental van, that van is going out in the community. So that's the information that people may not know beforehand. And so I had those questions to clarify that information so that it's visible for anybody that wants to pay attention and listen to the meeting. Why? Because we do have people that are concerned on how we're spending our funding, and if we're being fiscally responsible. And that's the difference between this program and that program. And Lindsay, we're in the budget with, what are we looking at as far as like the budget? What would that be considered under when we're looking at the treasurer's report? Like, what would that funding come out of?
We currently have excess of around 4 million right now, so we do have the funds that are unallocated at this point from last year. Is that correct, Tammy? So, because we start a new fiscal year October 1st, so that is from last fiscal year.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're
out
good
of our,
on that.
out of our carryover funds we haven't used in prior years, and in this year, we have about 4 million left. So that would be added onto my grant schedule to come out of that 4 million.
Okay, thank you.
Portion of that $4 million that Mr. Waldo was referring about that's left in the bank. So this is why and where. Okay, very good. Okay, so again, it was all in favor of the motion to approve that? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and can we count Commissioner May's vote as well, since he had said aye as he was, I know he wasn't here for the discussion, but he did vote.
He
Okay.
did approve at the program committee. He gave consent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The last item we have here is legal report from Ms. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So 3 items to report to the board this morning. The first, with respect to the Pensacola Little Theater $65,000 overpayment as categorized by their forensic auditor that was returned to the trust. As you know, staff did advise the Auditor General of that overpayment, and we have received confirmation that the Auditor General's office is in receipt of that notice this week. Haven't heard a response. We may not get a response, but just so this board is aware, it's been properly reported for the Auditor General to further handle if necessary. Secondly, the proposed, or the request for exemption from the tax incremental funding for the CRA with the city. I did speak with City Attorney Adam Cobb at the end of last week. He is reviewing a proposed interlocal agreement to make recommendations to Mayor Reeves and council. He is hopeful he can do that in time for the November meeting, which would be November 13th, but he's kind of stand by there. So still looking towards the end of the year for that public hearing on the proposed request for exemption and interlocal agreement. And then finally, we have undertaken a review, of course, of your standard contract in connection with these proposed mental health renewals. The standard contract is fine. It contains great terms. Of course, Meredith Bush did a great job, as she was earlier recognized in this meeting. We've just made certain areas more robust, so nothing removed, but particularly in the areas of grant compliance, and when a provider or grant recipient will be deemed to be in breach for failure to provide many of the documents that you're talking about today. Of course, your staff is well aware and remains on top of that, but I think for the provider, it's important to have that more articulated. And so you'll see a more exhaustive list and examples included within the contract document so that they have a full understanding going in when they sign the document, what they're going to be asked to do and by when every year, and what the serious consequence of failing to do that would be, which of course would be a cease in funding or, perhaps a non-renewal at the renewal period. And so your next round of agreements, you'll see that the contract has been redlined, containing that proposed language for your review. And unless there are any questions on those items, that concludes my report.
Is there any word in regards to a proposal by the group that normally sit where we are sitting to put our existence back on the ballot?
No, and that's a conversation, obviously, those elected representatives are speaking, for their constituents and have their own opinion about the trust and its funding and its continuance in the future. We're here until we're here under the first referendum. And should anything else come of that or the board wish that I have a conversation with the county attorney regarding those efforts, I'm happy to do so. But at this point in time, it's really just conversation.
Any further business to come before the board? And if not, we will stand adjourned at 11:18 and thank everyone for their patience and attendance and contribution.